To the untrained eye, what some people saw this weekend past was the simple act of watching two grown men, albeit those under 150 pounds, seeking to beat and pummel the life out of the other individual for the purpose of sport, glory, and boatloads of money. But one man looked a bit deeper into the science and history behind the violence of those who make the ring and the octagon their place of business. Jonathan Gottschall is the author of The Professor in the Cage: Why Men Fight and Why We Like to Watch.
I did a lot of research for this book. I did research inside the gym, and I did research, inside the library. And one of the things I found in the library is that everywhere you go in the world, and whenever you go there, people have always liked to watch men fight. There's something about the drama of a fight, the intensity of a fight, that's hard for other forms of drama to match. It's reality TV. There's so much at stake for these guys. And the pain is real, the elation is real. It's just an incredibly intense, dramatic performance.
What about that bloodlust, though? Because you'll find a lot of critics who will look at it, whether it's MMA or boxing, and they'll say, this is barbaric. Haven't we gone past this as a society in the 21st century?
Well, we clearly aren't past it. The question whether it's barbaric is debatable. I think there is a certain barbarism to it that we're attracted to. However, I don't think that's the main thing drawing us in. If you think about it, I don't think most people, I certainly don't, I don't want to watch an ISIS torture/murder video. I don't want to watch that. But I find it hard not to watch two men fighting. And I think it's partly because what a fight does is it sets up these conditions of incredible adversity that force the best elements of human nature to show themselves. Stuff like heroism and boldness and extremes of grace and endurance and fortitude. So I think I'll sound to some people like an apologist for violence, but I think what draws us to a fight isn't that we want to revel or succumb to the ugliest and worst parts of human nature, but that we want to honor and celebrate what we admire most in human nature.
Isn't it fair to say, though, that sometimes there are people who watch fights and they do succumb to that sort of animal nature, and it does take over, and there are certainly psychologists who say that's part of the problem, that it drives people to be more violent?
Yeah, but part of the research, again, my book consisted of doing participatory research inside a mixed martial arts gym and also doing a lot of library research. And so there's always been this theory that maybe watching all these violent competitions makes people more violent. The problem is that in decades of looking, sociologists have found no evidence that this is actually true.
It is close, though, isn't it? Because in many ways it is gladiatorial when it comes down to two men being in the ring against each other.
Yes, there's an undeniable gladiatorial element to it. And I think most people have an ambivalent response to it. We're drawn to spectacles of prize fighting, spectacles of violence, but we don't necessarily feel all that good about it because we know it's tapping into a side of ourselves that's a little bit dark. But I don't think, as I was saying before, I don't think that's all it is. I think we're also drawn to this because it's a spectacle of heroism, of brave men deciding to do this thing and displaying virtues that we really, really admire, like heroism and courage and fortitude.
I got a little less than a minute left here, but isn't it fair to say that people are always saying boxing is going to die, boxing is on life support, but when you come down to a fight like this, it is global. This will never die.
Yeah, I don't think spectacles of violence, I don't think prize fighting will die. It is an open question about the health of boxing, however. Whether this means that boxing is about to get healthy, or is this the last gasp of a dying sport, where two past their prime men are fighting it out. If you ask most sports fans to name three boxers, they'd name Pacquiao, Mayweather, and they get stuck on number three. So the question for me is, prize fighting will continue. It'll continue to be popular. The question is whether or not boxing will be completely supplanted by other forms, such as the Ultimate Fighting Championship, the UFC.
Jonathan Gottschall, brilliant book, and it really deserves a great read. Thanks so much for joining us.
Hey, I really appreciate you having me on. It was great fun talking to you.
What we find out a lot of times is when it comes down to boxing, it's not necessarily the fact that we need to see two guys or two gals in many instances beating the daylights out of each other, but what it is that gladiatorial concept. It is that one-on-one that captivates people. And what happened with Mayweather and Pacquiao is you had great stories there. Two boxers that had circled around each other for years. Mayweather had been ducking Pacquiao for a long time, wanted to make sure that he got all of his tomato cans out of the way, got all the real easy fighters out of the way, and then took it to Pacquiao when he was a little bit older and perhaps wasn't as good as he was. That's one of the things that captures us, is that story behind the fighters, what it is that makes it move. You don't see a lot of those great stories anymore in boxing. There certainly aren't any out there right now. That's why boxing is indeed, no matter how you slice it, a sport on the decline. How do you feel about things, what we do right here at the Hardline? Not only this, but so much else. We ask your opinions constantly. And don't worry, we've got some new ideas coming up for you to give us those ideas in audio and video. Make sure you send us a Facebook note. Go to facebook.com/thehardline or tweet us. Twitter, go to @hardline. Give us your comments. We'll talk about them here. We'll continue to use them and think about what you have to say. Oh, yeah, and by the way, as much as it hates to pain you, got to say, Mayweather won that fight. Pacquiao was not even close. All right, it's a special time of year. What is it? It's May 4th. What exactly does that mean? It means that it's Star Wars? Oh, yeah, but what about the Avengers? What is a nerdgasm? You'll find out next, right here on The Hardline.